Hi and welcome. My name is Jim Liebenstein, and today we're going to cover another aspect of the software for your instrumentarium or Soridex 3D device. Today we're going to talk a little bit about exporting images and when it's best to use export of a DICOM CT file and when it's best to save as in InVivo file. And kind of the differences between the two options and when one makes sense and when the other makes sense. First thing we want to talk about is actually exporting a DICOM file. And this takes place directly from the patient image record within the ClinView or Scanora software. And what we've got here is a patient up. Patient's name is test patient, and we're going to go ahead and open images by pressing the little icon for open images. We can also do that from going to the file menu and pulling down the open image. You can see that we have two images saved in this patient's record, panoramic here and a cone beam 3D volume down here. And this was acquired at a previous time. And we've got that sitting in the system tray here, or the tray for the images in the cone beam 3D section here. If I click on this, I've got a couple of different options. If we press open, then the viewing software that I've got hooked up to this installation of ClinView will open up, and we'll be able to view that particular volume. Right now, it really exists only as rendered data in this open format called the DICOM CT file. This is a very open format. This follows the protocols that are put in place for saving DICOM CT information. And when we open this, it's looking for some kind of file viewer that's able to deal with data that's saved in this protocol. And there's a number of different DICOM CT viewers that are available, both on the medical end of things and on the dental end of things. Some of the dental ones are, InVivo Dental, On-Demand 3D. Those are two sets of softwares that are commonly marketed with our products, depending on where in the world you acquire those products. We're going to talk about InVivo today for the North American market. But you also may find, some implant manufacturers or surgical drill guide provider softwares also available, like Materialis's Simplant or Noble Biocare's Noble Guide, along with other kinds of software that kind of fit into that 3D viewing type of spectrum. Now, if we as a provider are going to provide a file to somebody that we know already has their own 3D viewing software, you're going to send a referring dentist a record, and you know that they're looking at this with another intent in mind than your thoughts, your feelings, your notations, your measurements, and so on, then probably the DICOM CT file is the easiest way to export this thing. It's the most sensible way. What we're giving that person is a completely objective look at this case, this study that you've taken using your instrumentarium or Soridex system. There is no coloring of the data with your thoughts, your opinions. This is probably the best way when a patient leaves your practice to send them along to a new provider, is with a copy of this DICOM CT file. Again, this is a very open-ended objective look at the data from that patient's records. And how we do this is by highlighting the study, and instead of clicking open, which would open up your file viewers, we click export. And this will bring up the export screen right now. what we need to know here is that we have two different ways of exporting this DICOM study. Okay, when we export a DICOM CT file, it can be exported as a enhanced CT, which is a new school way of doing it. Basically exports one file, usually pretty big, and that one file has all of the information in it. Now the drawback to this is that there's not an awful lot of file viewing software that's able to take a look at this newer way of saving the DICOM CT files. The more traditional way of handling this, the way that most of the older software is able to handle it, is in the conventional DICOM CT file, which is not one file, but it's, you know, a couple hundred files. So when we're exporting this, we need to make sure that we've got a folder to grab this stuff. What I want to do here is set up a folder for us to export this to. I'm going to make this right on the desktop. Yep, I guess I should have done that first. Here we go. A new folder, and I'm going to call this test export. Just like this, and we'll open that file up. Now I've got a place to house all of this data. And I can rename my file, but you know, leaving the patient name on it is probably not a bad idea. And following the DICOM file naming conventions, this has the patient's name in it and the date that it was taken, and right embedded in the file name here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is export this data, and then we'll go ahead and take a look in this file folder so you can see what it is that I just exported. All right, that's percolating here. Okay, let's just minimize this and show you what we've got. Right here in our test export folder that I've got right here, we'll take a look, and you can see that there's several hundred files that represent that DICOM CT data. Now all I have to really do is double click on one of these, and my file viewer that's set up to look at DICOM data will go ahead and open up and allow us to look at that. So when I do that, I'll double click on this, and it is hooked up to know that if I'm looking at a DICOM CT file, it's going to try to open it with my InVivo dental software, and so it does. So here's our InVivo file taking a look at that DICOM CT. And again, the only reason that I can look at these files is that I have this InVivo Dental, which is a DICOM CT file viewing software. I could use any number of different file viewers, but the one that I have on this particular computer is InVivo Dental. All right. I'm going to take another look at this CliniView software, and I want to take another look at exporting things, because there's another reason that you might want to export the DICOM file viewing software. And that might be to share a case, an interesting case that you find with a study club or another similar type group of peers. For us to avoid getting into trouble with HIPAA laws, it becomes really important that we don't reveal our patient in any way. And what we can do to get around all of the DICOM data that is appended to that file when it's taken, including the patient name and the time and the technique factors and all the other DICOM markers that are appended to the file. What we want to do is anonymize this data. So if we can show you here, I'm going to pull down the other way of getting that image open again. We'll pull down the file and open image here. brings up the same little tray with different kinds of images in it. I'll select my cone beam 3D again, and we'll go ahead and export once more. And this time I'm going to anonymize the files, and I am going to rename this, Study Club. And I'm just going to re-export it into exactly the same folder so that we can show you the difference that data has now. All right, I'm going to export it as a conventional DICOM CT. So there's a whole bunch of files here. We've got the Anonymize Files box checked. I've renamed it so that there's no patient name as part of the file or anything like that. And we'll go ahead and export. This takes just a couple of seconds here, but when it's successfully done, I'll get a little dialog box saying that it's done. All right, image was exported successfully. So we'll close this and we'll take a look in our little folder right here, and we'll see down below our test patient record, we've got Study Club image record. Now, let me show you the difference between the two of these, because there is a difference. We'll take a look here. I'm going to go ahead and double click on any of these images, and it will open that file in my file viewer, which happens to be, I'm going to open this one, read, and we see here that in my record, in my file viewing software, we can see the date that it was taken and the patient's name, and all of the data that's embedded in that image is going to be shown up on this file here. All right, now I'm going to close this out so that we can see the difference when I go to the anonymous data. All right, this time I'm going to Study Club image. We're going to read this one. No patient data, and the information is no longer embedded in here. So that if we want to rename this to reflect what the case reflects, what it's all about, we can do that and then not have all of the data about the patient pop up in the windows here. So that's another reason why we might want to use the export function within the ClinView software. Again, the easiest way to think of this is anytime you're not interested in the person on the other end really knowing what your thoughts are on the case, you don't want to color their thinking on it, and you know that they have 3D viewing software, then exporting the DICOM CT file is probably the best way to go. But I'm sure that most of the time you're going to be providing some of your insights, some of your measurements, and the case workup, and showing that to other people. And for that reason, what we're going to do is, instead of exporting out of the ClinView software here, we will be saving the image as an InVivo file. And from InVivo, we can take a look. I've got a case open right now here, and we'll take a look at this. One of the great things about InVivo is the ability to work through the case, making notations and comments and screen captures, and saving those to what we call a gallery. All right, and in this case, it's got a number of different gallery entries here showing different aspects of this case as we work through it. These screen captures have been named, and we're just going to show the person on the other end here our thoughts and how we've worked up this case. All right, so we see the different aspects of this, and what we're going to do is now save as, and we will be able to save this test case. I'm going to go ahead and put this in that same folder that we just did. We just used to export things here. I'm going to put it right here. We'll call it the test case, and we'll save this. We have the opportunity here to choose how we're going to save this. We can save the full case, which is full resolution. This is a reasonably large file, but not huge. If we absolutely need to squish this down so small that you can email it to somebody, you know, and to be able to fit into most people's mail servers, size limitations, and so on, then we can choose this button, and that will squish it down pretty tight. Customize allows you to change the amount of loss that you're willing to put up with through another dialog box. But normally we're going to be saving these in the full manner here. I'm going to go ahead and save. And we're going to save this case right into that folder again. Now this is the full case that you've been working. This is the full case with all your measurements, all your thoughts, the screen captures that illustrate all the points that you're trying to make in communicating the elements of this case to your colleague. So when we have this saved now, and we take a look inside that folder here, I'm going to go ahead and we see that we've got an InVivo, a .inv file here. This is a completely different file format, and this is also openable in InVivo, but this is only openable in InVivo, where these are openable in any file viewer that has the ability to look at a DICOM CT file. This is only going to work in InVivo, and now the InVivo is something that not everybody has. You came with your system, and you can go to Anonymize, and they're happy to sell it to a colleague. It's you know, an investment for looking at 3D software. There is another way for you to send this to them, and that's to package this file, the test case file, along with the InVivo Dental Viewer software installer. All right, this came along with your reconstruction computer. It's probably still sitting on the desktop. If not, there's a folder on your C drive that says Paladex Group, and inside there is an Anonymize folder, and the InVivo Dental Viewer installer is in there. And this is for you to send out to your referring dentist, anybody that you want to be able to look at elements of this case. So what you need to do is, you know, make a CD, or however you want to handle. You can use a thumb drive. This is too big really to be emailed, but this InVivo Dental Viewer will allow that person on the receiving end to install this dental viewer, which is free, but it will allow them to see elements of your study. All right, let's take a look at how this works. All right, pretend that I'm a dentist, and you have sent to me this InVivo Dental Viewer, and although InVivo, the full version of InVivo is able to open up and take a look at these DICOM CT files, the Dental Viewer, this is only able to open InVivo files. As we take a look at what's in this folder right now, that's only able to look at this .inv file, not the .dcm files. All right. I hope that's clear to you. I've tried to make that as clear as I can, but I understand that there's confusion there. But the freeware viewer can't do everything the full version of InVivo Dental can. All right, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and double-click on this file viewer installer that you sent to me on a CD or on a thumb drive or some other way. And here we go. Here comes the installer. It's going to allow me to install this InVivo Dental Viewer on my machine. And you know what? I'm going to install this once. And from now on, whenever you send me a case, you don't even have to send me the viewer. I'll have it. So let's take a look at this. I got to accept the terms of the end user license agreement, and I'm going to install this. While this is installing, I need to tell you that Anonymize is just finalizing another version of InVivo Dental. If your purchase has taken place of our equipment has taken place within the last year, you'll be eligible to get this update free of charge. If you've had your system longer than a year, talk to your instrumentarium and Soridex sales representative about the possibility of getting the latest and greatest, which is InVivo Dental 5.2. InVivo Dental 5.2 has the provisions on board for making a freeware file viewer, a free-running demonstration that allows you not to have to jump through this particular hoop to package your case with a freeware viewer. All right, so now I am the referring dentist that you're sending that case to, and I've gone through the steps of installing that InVivo viewer on my desktop. So now I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I can go ahead and open that file that you just gave me, and that's in that folder that's labeled test export here. And here's the case that you sent to me. So I'm going to open that up, and we'll take a look at the file that you sent over to me. All right, so we've got this file, and here's what I'm able to see. I can see the section tab, the multiplanar reformat here. I've got all the fidelity of the original case that you've got. I have the ability to create my own custom sections so that I can look at different aspects. I have the ability to make measurements. I have the ability to change the layout and set the reorientation, but that's basically it on this particular view. When we take a look at the arch section, I have all of the aspects for doing the cutaway version of this, for being able to trace my own nerve if you haven't already done it for me, for changing the aspect, the angle of the and the curve of the panoramic section that appears here, and the format of the cross-sectional views that we've got here. And then I have the full benefit of all your insight and even the 3D stuff that I don't have access to. All of your screen captures are appearing to me just the way that you took them, with all of your notations and the ability to take a look at those and print them. All right, so that's what the freeware viewer is all about. And this is what somebody on the receiving end is able to look at when they receive that particular file format from you. So again, just to kind of recap what we've been talking about this afternoon, if you want somebody to have all of your insights in this casework up, we're going to save your file as an InVivo file and send it along with the viewer installer. When your receiving person installs that freeware viewer, they're going to have access to the section tab, the ARC section tab, and all of your screenshots that you've packaged with that case in the gallery. So it's a very powerful tool for a freeware viewer. The only thing that we really don't have access to is the three-dimensional stuff. And for that, you need to have the full case. If we are sending out objective information, the data set itself, without all of your comments on it, then probably the best way to do it is to export a DICOM CT file. And the DICOM CT file can take two forms. It can either be the DICOM CT version, the old school way of saving these, which is really in essence several hundred files, or you can use the newer DICOM format of the enhanced CT, which is a flattened single file that's quite large and it contains all of this information in one file. And depending on the receiver's 3D software, they may or may not be able to use that. So you're always best served by sending out the DICOM CT file, which is this hundreds of files. I hope this has been informative to you. If you have any questions at this point in time, you can ask them. Otherwise, stay tuned for another upcoming insight into your 3D viewing software. Our next session is going to be on September 7th. We'll talk more about file management and imports and exports. Thank you